Hello and welcome to the Data Governance Podcast. We are on season 8, episode 10. Can you believe it? I have no idea where the time goes. So thank you so much for joining me today. I have the most wonderful conversation coming up with Di Elvers, who is the Director of Data Governance Standards at AstraZeneca. Her passion and enthusiasm for all things data governance is just amazing and comes through during this interview. I hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the podcast, Di.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you here. So, I always like to ask people this same question when they join the podcast because, it's not always the most obvious career choice to people. So I want to know, how long have you been working in data governance? I may have given a hint in that one in the intro. And how did you actually get into it?
Good question. So as you said, 8 years ago when you and I first met was actually the first sort of umbrella term of data governance. And through your workshop was enabling me to sort of go, well, this is what I know, and then applying that thinking to what you were saying and actually identifying that there is a term for some of the things that is more formal and structured, but I was already doing some of those things. So it's like sort of joining the dots and going, that's got an actual term. Right, okay, that's metadata. Oh, okay, that's how we do reporting, and that's data quality. Okay. So some particular terms and joining things together, how large a topic data governance is really interesting. But to answer your initial question, so I did start within data, let's put it that way,
right.
26 years ago. And I fell into it. So I know some of the youngsters, particularly in our family recently, have kind of been at that stage asking themselves, what do they want to do as a career? And interestingly, my niece asked me. So I said, well, I fell into it. I wasn't actually doing data, but I ended up managing a database. And that was on behalf of trying to structure and provide my boss some information about a budget. So it was all about finances within a local county council. Right. So I set one up. And as I was doing this activity of setting up a database and understanding how to structure the data and have relationships between tables, use reference data, and making sure that the master data keys for individuals were structured in the right way, I just found I loved it. And without even realizing, was doing something where, I went home at night and was sitting there creating it from scratch and trying to solve problems in my own time because I found I was passionate about it. And then when I was talking about it with the solution that I provided, of course, I was really excited about it. Oh, look, I can give you a report. And when you click on a button, look, it automatically gives you all these figures and it saves me having to do all this work that I was doing manually for you and all of that sort of stuff. But because that sort of turned into a, can I get my job rescaled? The answer to that after 9 months was no. I was like, well, I want to do this as a job. Actually, what is it that I'm doing? And I didn't know. It didn't have a term back then. So I went around some recruitment agencies and I asked, about this sort of experience. And I said, do I need some training? What training do I need to do? Well, then they asked me what software I was using. And back then it was Microsoft Access. Anybody sitting and listening to this now is probably really chuckling. But, 26 years ago, it was one of the go-to pieces of software. And it was easy because it was, of course, you had it as part of your Microsoft suite. And it was a very good introduction for me in terms of learning the bare bones and the background piece. And then what that led on to, of course, was, no, I didn't need training. I did ask, and I'd been doing it for 2 years. And they said, no, you've probably got more experience now in actually managing and solving problems than what you'd ever get taught in doing a particular course, which I was like, well, that's great because I don't really this is where I was still learning about what my learning style is. And I'm a do, read, do action. And I'm very much, I need pictures. So I love visuals, and doing and solving really helps you really embed that sort of learning. And of course, we all learn in different styles. which then led me into the role that I got for CAN, which was a local drug and alcohol charity. So for anybody on that sort of journey, it's interesting as well, zoom forward to where we are today. When you look at people who maybe come to you in recruitment and, you know, you read their job description and you're looking at the sort of skill sets they have, you do tend to find technical people who've started out technically will maybe come into data governance because of the things you have to solve.
Yes.
Things like structuring data, or, you know, talking to somebody in the business who's got unstructured data and you want them to structure their data because we know structuring it makes it have high quality, you know, and it provides you with reference data, and solving problems at master data where it hasn't been set up properly. You come across it and you have to solve it. So a lot of technical people, I think, maybe come from that side. So you can then, depending on skill set, I guess, is a little bit around whether you can translate that into something business friendly that then enables you to talk to people.
Yes, I think you're right. There is that. I've seen a lot of people. I came from a business background, not technical, but I've seen a lot of people come the technical route because, as you say, they perhaps understand for the need for it before the business users do. And if you can
Yes.
articulate that and
Yeah.
explain it to a way that you can convince business users, you know, you're off to a winner. Where you clearly can do that because you've had a very successful career in data governance. So what characteristics would you say that you have that make you successful at data governance?
Well, we've hit on one, which is translation. And I'll give you an example of this. I do remember going for an interview. I won't say where, but in this interview, I was told that I was very unpolished. And this person who was interviewing me was very technical and at a very, very high degree, using all these technical words.
Mm.
But what translated one, even though I got the role and worked very successfully in that role, it was interesting how his interpretation of me talking in a less structured, less formalized, with the big words way of communicating, he had that ability to write all these things into a document very structured, and I learned a lot from him. But actually there's a real balance between the way I communicate or the way he communicates, in that I have to implement. So I have to be able to chunk things up. I have to make something implementable, which means you're taking people on a journey. So communication and that translation is really the number one, I would say. It's really important, because if I talk in all these big words and you don't understand me, I've lost you. I've lost people very quickly. And I read a good book once, which was the Jelly Effect. I do recommend
Yes.
it.
Yes, it's one I recommend a lot. It's a fabulous
It's
book for
a
communicating.
fantastic way of really demonstrating that you can sit and communicate for ages, but there's probably only three things that they've taken away.
Yes.
And we think, oh, throw all this information at people, and, you know, yeah, it's great. You can do it straight away. You know, we can do that in one spot. It's very unlikely. You've got to phase these things and be able to do that. So I'd say another one is definitely about understanding how people digest information and how to chunk things up so that they can see things as a natural, incremental way of doing things, and not expect to be successful immediately, because data governance isn't an overnight success.
No,
We use the word data governance, and actually, when you look at the Dharma wheel and see all those things that are interconnected to it, you go, well, that's a lot. There's no way you can do all those things. You know, even just under the heading of metadata, and being able to describe metadata and why you need it and when you need it and what happened, why it's useful. So let's say if it's automation for access, or being able to reverse it out and see where something came from and who should be responsible for it. You know, there's so many different angles. It's very easy to over egg what it is you think you're going to implement. You've got to be realistic. It's got to be practical, and needs baby steps to get there.
I think so. I do love the you're not going to be an overnight success. That is such an understatement. For data governance, that's a brilliant one, Di. Thank you. So, and I think just your sheer Passion and energy are obviously key characteristics. They come across so much. I always enjoy talking to you because I always end up having more energy at the end of a call than I started, which is really good. Now, I remember back when I started doing data governance, and I'm sure you're saying that, perhaps it wasn't as straightforward and as easy as we thought it was going to be. So, I wondered, what is it that you wish you'd known when you were just starting out in data governance?
Well, so your training and Dharma training has been very good at providing structure. So let's take the analogy of me being the unstructured person for a minute. And I had all this, technical ability of knowing how to do this, knowing how to do that, but didn't know any of the formal structure. I think there's that combination between would like training up front. So now that there is training and you can go and understand these other things, it helps you then go off and go, well, what do I need to know next? It's that next natural step. So that's for somebody coming in from scratch, that's really helpful. And I do wish that I'd been able to do some of that a lot earlier. However, there is another side that I then say, well, did it actually limit me? No, it probably didn't, because I could always go off and solve, and I could always deliver and talk to people about what we need to do. But I do believe it's probably still answering the question previously about what's successful, understanding people, how people manage change, and what their learning styles are has been really important, because it's very easy for us to think we can throw things at people and that doesn't work. So knowing how big data governance is, and not just thinking, oh, if I use the word data governance, that's going to be enough. It is not enough, actually. You do need to know all the other components, how they fit together, and what's involved. So I definitely think if you want to get into it, you need to know more about it. And knowing some of that a lot earlier really helps you then work out what path maybe for your own knowledge to increase knowledge in different areas would have been very more advantageous if I'd had it earlier.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I think I was also I took a while to actually understand that bigger picture. I was just really focusing on roles and responsibilities, and I wish I'd had that opportunity. And all the training and stuff didn't exist when I was making it up as I went along 21 years ago. But it was that, it took me a long time to realize I had to have that holistic view to be able to work out even what to talk to who. And I also think you picked up on one of the things that I'm always very passionate about, is that I think data governance is more about the people than the data. The data doesn't misbehave on its own. So it is so important to bring the people with us. That is
Yes.
absolutely vital. So we are fast running out of time, but I did want to ask you one more question. You've shared so many great gems of advice already, but what is there any particular advice that you would offer somebody who was perhaps listening to this and who's just starting out their first role in data governance? What would you tell them to go and do or not do?
Okay, well, I'd definitely do a bit more about data. So somebody who's been very hands-on with data can then articulate examples. So again, I'd use if you like this work, then go and work with somebody closely. If you're not allowed to and you're not getting exposed to it today, you actually need to see problems in data. You need examples, you need to get your hands on it. So if you don't have that in your role, go off and get exposure. So shadow somebody and try and really understand the types of problems that they see, that they have to manage, because then you can talk to that and then you've got it as examples for communication. And if you are not so conversed in communication styles and that business to translation sort of training or background, you do need to understand that. And the reason why is because it's, as we said earlier, it's not easy. You do need to have a lot of resilience and a lot of other things that you can sort of pull out the bag. This doesn't work, we'll try something else, and be sort of jokey about it. It can sound very serious, but of course, we're still, as you said, we're working with people. We've got to think about people motivators. We've got to think about, well, okay, that didn't work this time. What can I do next time? And as I've seen here in AstraZeneca, sometimes the first time you approach people, maybe the first thing they take away is just a bit of rapport. They may have liked you as a person. They don't necessarily understand the topic, but they took a couple of things away. And sometimes I've seen that it takes even 4 or 5 times to go back and talk to them about the topic a little bit more detail, because they want that human interaction, that you're going to have to go and invest that effort, and don't expect it to be one-time winner.
Absolutely. Yeah, a number of times I've had people say, yeah, sorry, what was that data governance thing you told me about last month again? What was it you wanted me to do? And you just want to go, but you mustn't. You have to be very patient, take a big deep breath and go back and tell them again. So that has been wonderful. I knew it would be great talking to you, Di. If people want to get in contact, is LinkedIn the best way?
Yes, please. Yeah, please feel free, reach out. And we're looking hopefully to set up a sort of a data governance network for pharma. So if anybody's interested in reaching out for connecting and collaborating and a bit of knowledge sharing, please get in touch. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. It's been wonderful having you, Di. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Di as much as I did. Isn't she just the most amazing person? I love her passion for something considered as dry, but those of us in the know just know. Well, I hope you will be joining me next week, where we're going to have a short bite-sized episode where I'm going to answer the questions of why can't data stewards be accountable for the data? I hope you'll join me then.